I didn't hear the wire cutters that night. Didn't hear them snip through the phone line my grandfather installed 20 years ago. Didn't hear the soft crunch of boots on desert gravel as two desperate men approached the only home I'd ever known. What I heard was silence, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl in the Arizona heat. At 18, living alone 20 miles from Tombstone, you learn to read the desert's moods. Tonight, it held its breath. Ghost lifted his head from beside my desk, amber eyes catching the lamplight. 55 pounds of silver-gray fur, more wolf than dog, more family than pet. His ears swiveled toward the window. Then the solar panels clicked off, plunging us into darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs. The emergency lamp on my desk flickered once, twice, died. Through the window I could see stars. Too many stars. No light pollution, no neighbors, no help. Glass shattered downstairs. This wasn't an accident. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching. From now, let's continue with the story. The glass kept falling. I could hear it tinkling against the kitchen tile, each shard a small betrayal of the safety I'd convinced myself existed out here. Ghost pressed against my leg, warm and solid in the darkness. His silence was tactical. 3 years together taught me his language. This wasn't fear. This was readiness. My parents died 2 years ago on Highway 10. Drunk driver crossed the median at midnight, no warning, no goodbye. Just a phone call from a sheriff with a voice that already knew I'd remember it forever. They were desert ecologists, spent their lives studying how things survived in impossible heat. Turns out, knowing survival doesn't guarantee it. Grandfather Bill took me in. Moved into this ranch that had been in Mom's family since before Arizona was a state. Adobe walls 2 feet thick, solar panels Dad installed, well water that tasted like minerals and memories. Bill taught me to shoot, to track, to read the desert like a book written in sand and starlight. Then 6 months ago his heart betrayed him. Stroke at 75. Now he's in Phoenix, in a hospital that smells like bleach and broken promises, and I'm alone, except for Ghost. I found him 3 years back, dragging himself across the ranch with a leg caught in a steel trap, 15 years old and stupid enough to think I could save him. He was maybe 3 months old, more blood than fur, amber eyes already holding something ancient. The vet said, coyote mix. Probably 20% domestic dog. I named him Ghost because he moved like smoke, because he appeared when I needed him most, because calling him that made him feel less wild and more like mine. The acceptance letter from University of Arizona came 4 months ago. Full ride, wildlife biology, everything my parents dreamed for me. It's still under my pillow, unfolded so many times the creases are wearing through. I can't leave Ghost. Animal Control's already issued 2 warnings. 1 more complaint and they'll put him down. They call him dangerous. They don't know he hasn't eaten in 3 days because I've been too anxious to eat, and he won't touch food until I do first. The footsteps downstairs were deliberate now. 2 sets, moving through my home like they had a map. Ghost's muscles coiled beneath my hand. I had a choice to make. Hide like prey, or face them like a Bennett. I chose wrong. I grabbed the flashlight from my desk drawer. Dead batteries. Of course. The emergency lamp had 1 setting left, dim enough to see shadows, bright enough to announce exactly where I stood. Ghost moved ahead of me, placing himself between me and the staircase, not protecting me, leading me. There's a difference. Mom's voice echoed in my head, something she'd said 100 times while tracking mountain lions through Saguaro National Park. Fear makes you prey, Sarah. Curiosity makes you human. Always choose human. I chose human. The stairs creaked under my bare feet. Ghost's claws made no sound at all. He'd learned to walk silent as smoke years ago. Below us, The intruders had stopped moving. They'd heard me coming. Good. Let them wonder what kind of girl walks toward danger instead of hiding from it. I hit the last step and raised the flashlight. 2 men stood frozen in my kitchen, caught like animals in headlights. The beam swept across their faces, one older, maybe early 40s, with the kind of weathered skin that comes from outdoor work and too much sun. The other younger, 30s, with nervous energy radiating off him like heat shimmer on asphalt. "You're in my home," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "You need to leave now." The older man's hand moved toward something at his belt. Ghost's growl filled the room, low, ancient, the kind of sound that spoke directly to the primitive part of your brain that remembered when humans weren't apex predators. "Jesus Christ," the younger one whispered. His hand was already on a gun. "That's a wolf." "That's Ghost," I corrected. "And he stays with me because he wants to, not because he has to. Same choice I'm giving you. Leave, or find out why the locals call him dangerous." The older man held up both hands slowly. "Easy. Nobody wants trouble here." His eyes never left Ghost, studying him with the careful attention of someone who understood predators. "I'm Garrett. This is Travis. We're not here to hurt anyone. You broke into my house." I kept the flashlight steady on his face. "That doesn't exactly scream peaceful intentions." "We're looking for something," Garrett said. His voice carried an edge of desperation that made me pause. "Money. We were told there's insurance money here from your parents." Something in his tone, not threatening but broken, made me look closer. His clothes were clean but worn thin at the elbows. Work boots with the toes scuffed white. Hands that had seen manual labor for decades. This wasn't a career criminal. This was a man at the end of his rope. "Who told you that?" I asked. "Does it matter?" Travis cut in, his voice sharp with impatience. "Look, kid, we don't want to hurt you or your dog. He's not a dog. Whatever he is, just show us where the money is and we'll leave." Ghost took a step forward. Travis's hand tightened on his gun. Everything slowed down, that moment where you can see the future branching into different possibilities, some ending in blood and regret, others in conversation and understanding. Then Garrett's wallet slipped from his pocket. It hit the floor, springing open. In the flashlight beam, I saw a photograph. A teenage girl with a bright smile and a butterfly tattoo on her wrist. I knew that girl. "Katie," I whispered. Garrett's face went white. "How do you know my daughter's name?" The photograph trembled in my hand. Katie Hayes, 16 years old, butterfly tattoo on her left wrist. I'd met her 4 months ago at Phoenix Children's Hospital during one of Grandpa Bill's appointments. She was in the oncology wing, bald from chemotherapy, but smiling anyway. We'd talked for 20 minutes about nothing. Desert wildflowers, stupid reality TV shows, how hospital jello all tasted the same regardless of color. "I volunteered at the hospital," I said quietly. "Phoenix Children's. She showed me her butterfly tattoo. Said her mom gave it to her for her 15th birthday." Garrett's knees buckled. He caught himself against the kitchen counter and I saw his whole body shaking. "Jennifer gave her that tattoo. Week before she died." Travis shifted uncomfortably. "Garrett, man, we don't have time for—" "Your wife had cancer too?" I asked. "Breast cancer. Stage 4. Garrett's voice was barely a whisper. "We thought we could beat it." Sold everything. The farm, the equipment, my grandfather's land. 150 years our family worked that soil in Oklahoma. Gone in 18 months to pay for treatments that didn't work. The flashlight felt heavy in my hand. Ghost had stopped growling. He could sense the shift in the room, from threat to something more complicated, something human. "The bank took the farm while Jennifer was in hospice," Garrett continued. "Katie got sick 3 months after we buried her mother. Leukemia. $12,000 a month for treatment. I had nothing left. No insurance, no collateral, nothing to sell. I begged the hospital for payment plans. They said yes until they said no. My throat felt tight. When did she? 2 months ago. Garrett's face crumpled. I couldn't afford the final round of treatment. They said there was a 90% chance it would save her. 90%. But I didn't have $38,000. So I held my daughter's hand and watched her die because I was poor. The silence in my kitchen felt sacred and terrible. I thought about my parents, how they'd died instantly, how I'd never had to make impossible choices about their lives, how I'd inherited this ranch, inherited options, inherited the luxury of grief without guilt. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." Travis cleared his throat. "Look, this is real sad and all, but we came here for a reason." Danny Walsh said. "Danny Walsh?" I interrupted. "The insurance agent?" Garrett nodded. "He came to me 3 weeks ago. Said he knew about a house with cash money, insurance payout from a plane crash. Said it was just sitting there and the girl living alone had no way to protect it. Said I could take what I needed, pay Katie's funeral costs, pay the hospital bills so her death doesn't ruin my credit." He laughed bitterly. "Like credit matters when you've lost everything that mattered." Something cold settled in my stomach. Danny Walsh handled my parents' death claim 2 years ago. He knows there's no cash here. Everything went into a trust fund I can't touch until I'm 21. Travis and Garrett exchanged looks. "He said 200,000 in cash," Travis said slowly. "He lied." I walked past them to the window, looking out at the desert darkness. The question is, why? Ghost followed me, pressing against my leg. His warmth was the only solid thing in a world that suddenly felt full of trapdoors and false floors. Danny Walsh had sent a desperate father to rob a teenage girl, knowing neither of us had what he'd promised. That wasn't a mistake, that was a plan. "How much money do you actually have here?" Garrett asked. His voice had changed, less desperate, more cautious, like he was starting to see the same pattern I was seeing. $6,340, I said. "Saved from selling my mother's paintings. It's supposed to cover Ghost veterinary care and my first semester textbooks." "Ghost?" Travis frowned. I gestured to the wolf at my side. "Say hello to the most expensive pet in Arizona." We moved to my father's study, the room where he'd spent 20 years documenting how life survived in places it shouldn't. Ironic, considering he didn't survive a Tuesday night on Highway 10. I switched on the battery-powered lamp, casting shadows across walls lined with research journals and specimens in jars. Scorpions, beetles, a preserved rattlesnake that still made me flinch. Garrett sat heavily in Dad's old chair. Travis paced by the window, gun still visible in his waistband but his hand no longer hovering near it. Ghost positioned himself by the door, watching both men with those unsettling amber eyes. "Tell me about the farm," I said. Not because I wanted to make small talk with the men who'd broken into my home, but because I needed to understand how Danny Walsh had orchestrated this. Garrett's face aged 10 years in the lamplight. "Hayes Farm, Oklahoma. My great-great-grandfather broke that ground in 1873. Wheat, corn, cattle. Nothing fancy, but it fed us, fed the county." He pulled out his wallet again, showing me a photo of rolling fields under enormous sky. 2018, the drought started. Worst in a century, they said. Crops failed 2 years running. We had savings. Thought we could weather it. Then Jennifer got sick, Travis added quietly. He'd stopped pacing, standing with his arms crossed like he was holding himself together. "Cancer moves fast when you can't afford the treatments that might slow it down," Garrett continued. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, experimental drugs, each one promising hope, each one costing more than we had. The bank offered to extend our agricultural loan, said they understood hard times. What they meant was they understood how to squeeze every penny before foreclosure. I thought about the papers in my own hidden compartment. The foreclosure notice giving me until August 15th to pay $50,000 in back property taxes. They always understand, I said bitterly, right until they don't. Garrett looked up sharply. You're being foreclosed on? Property taxes. Grandpa Bill couldn't pay them from the hospital. I've been trying to piece together enough money, but between his medical bills and Ghost's care, I trailed off, suddenly aware I was confessing financial desperation to men who'd come here to rob me. Ghost's care? Travis frowned. What's wrong with him? Nothing's wrong with him. Everything's wrong with what he is. I scratched behind Ghost's ears. He leaned into my hand, a gesture so trusting it made my chest ache. He's not exactly a coyote. The vet thinks he's maybe 85% wolf, 15% domestic dog. Mexican wolf, probably. They're extinct in the wild. Garrett leaned forward. Extinct? Like completely gone? In the wild, yes. There are maybe 300 in captivity, breeding programs trying to bring them back. Ghost shouldn't exist. My parents found him in a trap 3 years ago. They were desert ecologists. They spent their lives studying predator reintroduction. I think they knew what he was. I think that's why they never reported finding him. Because he's valuable, Travis said slowly. Because he's irreplaceable. I met his eyes. The government would take him, put him in a breeding program somewhere, use him to try to save his species. He'd spend the rest of his life in a concrete enclosure, being poked and prodded and bred like livestock. Is that better than extinction? I don't know. I just know he saved my life once, and I won't let him die in a cage. Garrett's expression had shifted to something I couldn't quite read. How did he save your life? The memory was a year old, but still sharp enough to cut. Rattlesnake. I was checking the irrigation system, not watching where I stepped. Ghost knocked me sideways, took the bite meant for my ankle. On his shoulder, see? I pointed to the scar hidden in Ghost's fur. Vet said another inch to the left would have hit his heart. He knew that snake was there, and he chose to take the hit. And that's when you knew, Garrett said softly, that he wasn't a pet. He was never a pet. He's family. I stood up, restless with the weight of confession. But animal control doesn't see it that way. They've issued 2 warnings. Mrs. Patterson's chickens, some hikers who claimed he stalked them, which he did because they were too close to the ranch and he was protecting territory. 1 more complaint and they'll put him down. So I keep him close, I keep him secret, and I pray the university will still honor my acceptance when I explain I need to bring a wolf to campus. Travis laughed, a sharp bark of sound. Yeah, that'll go over well. She could get special permission, Garrett said. If Ghost is really that rare, if he's got genetic value to the breeding program, there are laws protecting endangered species. Federal laws. Federal laws that would take him away from me. I shook my head. I've done the research. Best case scenario, I become his handler in some government facility. Worst case, they euthanize him because he's too socialized to contribute to wild population recovery. Either way, I lose him. The silence stretched between us. 3 strangers bound by loss and desperation, and decisions made by people who'd never walked a mile in boots that were falling apart. Jennifer killed herself, Garrett said suddenly. I told everyone it was the cancer, but she took pills, left a note saying she couldn't watch Katie and me suffer because of her medical debt. Said we'd be better off with the life insurance. My hand froze on Ghost's fur. Garrett. The insurance company denied the claim. Suicide clause. So she died for nothing. His voice was flat, emotionless, in the way that meant too much emotion to contain. Katie got her diagnosis 3 months later. By then, I'd spent Jennifer's funeral money on the first round of chemotherapy. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. Travis moved to Garrett's side, put a hand on his shoulder. The gesture was familiar, protective. "That's when Danny Walsh showed up," Travis said. "Told Garrett about this place, about insurance money just sitting here. Said it was practically stealing from someone who didn't need it anyway." "Danny knew my parents," I said slowly, pieces clicking together in my mind. "He processed their death claim. He knows exactly what I have and don't have. He knows about the foreclosure. He knows—" I stopped, ice flooding my veins. "He knows about Ghost." Garrett's head snapped up. "What?" "The vet who treats Ghost, Dr. Morrison. He works with Danny's office for exotic animal insurance policies. Morrison did genetic testing on Ghost last year. If he mentioned to Danny that he had a Mexican wolf in his clinic—" I couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. "How much would a wolf like that be worth?" Travis asked. "To the right buyer?" "Millions." The word tasted like ash. "To black market collectors, to foreign governments trying to start their own breeding programs, to anyone who wants to say they own something that rare. My parents knew. That's why they never reported finding him. They were protecting him from becoming a commodity." Garrett stood up slowly, his face grave. "Sarah, Danny didn't send me here to rob you. He sent me here to kill you." The room tilted. Ghost pressed against my legs, the only thing keeping me upright. "Think about it," Garrett continued, his voice urgent now. "He told me you'd have cash, that you were alone, that no one checks on you. He knew I was desperate enough to break in. If I'd found no money, if I'd gotten angry, if things had gone wrong, 2 people dead, and valuable wolf suddenly ownerless and up for grabs, who gets called to process that situation?" "The insurance agent," I whispered. "Danny Walsh." Travis's face had gone pale. "Jesus Christ, Garrett. What did we walk into?" The answer came in the form of headlights sweeping across the window, a vehicle approaching fast up the desert road, too fast for a casual neighbor checking in. Ghost's hackles rose. He moved between me and the door, a low growl building in his chest. "That's not the police," I said. "No," Garrett agreed, pulling the gun from his waistband and checking the chamber. "That's Danny coming to finish what we started." The vehicle's engine cut off. In the desert silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat, Ghost's controlled breathing, and the metallic click of Garrett checking his gun's safety. "How many bullets?" Travis whispered. 6. "You?" "Empty. Sold my gun last month. Bought this off a guy at the shelter for $40. Never checked if it even worked." Perfect. 2 desperate men, 1 loaded weapon between them, and me with a wolf who'd never been trained to attack humans. Ghost could take down a rabbit at full sprint, could track a scent across 3 miles of desert, but asking him to defend against an armed man went against every instinct my parents had carefully nurtured in him. "Where's your grandfather's guns?" Garrett asked me. "Sold them." The admission tasted like failure. "Last December. Bill's hospital bills were due, and the insurance company was denying half the claims." A Winchester 30-30 and a Remington 12 gauge bought us 3 more months of physical therapy. Travis moved to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. "One vehicle. Looks like Danny's Silverado. Can't see if he's alone." The knock came then, 3 sharp raps on the front door. Polite, almost friendly. The kind of knock that said, "I'm not a threat, just a neighbor checking in." "Sarah?" Danny Walsh's voice carried through the adobe walls. "Sarah Bennett? It's Danny Walsh from Desert Shield Insurance. Your grandfather asked me to check on you. Are you all right?" I looked at Garrett. He shook his head sharply. "Don't answer." "Sarah, I know you're home. Your truck's in the driveway. I just want to make sure everything's okay. There's been some reports of suspicious activity in the area. Ghost's growl was so low I felt it more than heard it. A vibration in the floorboards. A warning that bypassed language and went straight to the brain stem. His amber eyes were locked on the door, his body coiled like a spring compressed to its breaking point. "We can wait him out," Travis suggested. "He can't stay out there forever." "He doesn't have to." I moved to my father's desk, pulled out the bottom drawer, found the folder I'd been avoiding for months. Danny Walsh is the executor of my parents' estate. He has legal right to enter this property for insurance purposes. If I don't answer, he can claim he was concerned for my welfare and break in. Probably already called Sheriff Davidson as backup. Garrett's jaw tightened. Then we're trapped. No. I opened the folder, scanned the documents inside. My mother's handwriting covered the margins, notes, calculations, contingency plans. She'd always been the practical one, the one who planned for disasters. "We're documented." Another knock, harder this time. "Sarah, I'm coming in." "If you're hurt, if there's someone in there with you, make a noise." "He wants me to make a noise," I said quietly. "Wants witnesses to hear me call for help. Then he's justified in whatever he does next." Travis turned from the window, his face pale in the lamplight. "That's psychopath logic. That's insurance agent logic." I pulled out my phone. No signal, as expected, but the camera still worked. "Garrett, tell me everything Danny told you. Every word, every detail, and I'm recording this." Garrett glanced at the phone, then at me. Understanding dawned in his eyes. 3 weeks ago, Wednesday afternoon, Danny Walsh came to the shelter where I've been staying in Tucson. He knew my name, knew about Jennifer, about Katie, said he had information about an opportunity. The front door handle rattled. Testing. Danny was done being polite. "He said there was a girl living alone east of Tombstone," Garrett continued, speaking faster now. "Said her parents died in a plane crash 2 years back, left her a big insurance payout. Said she kept cash in the house because she didn't trust banks. Said the grandfather was in a hospital in Phoenix, wouldn't be back for months. Said it would be easy money, victimless crime because insurance would cover whatever was taken." "Did he mention Ghost?" I asked. "Not by name. He said there was a dog, but it was old and wouldn't be a problem." Garrett's eyes widened. He wanted me to think Ghost was harmless, wanted me to walk in here unprepared. The front door splintered. Danny had stopped pretending. "Everybody shut up and don't move," I hissed. I killed the lamp, plunging us into darkness. Ghost pressed against my leg, trembling with restraint. To Travis and Garrett, "Can either of you shoot straight?" "Army, 2 deployments," Travis whispered, "but that was 15 years ago." "Good enough." I pressed myself against the wall beside the study door. "When he comes in, let him get to the center of the room. Ghost will distract him. Garrett, you get 1 shot. Make it count." "I'm not killing anyone," Garrett said. "Then aim for his leg. But if it's between him and us, you'd better figure out which choice you can live with." Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. Danny wasn't rushing. He had all night and he knew it. I could hear him breathing, could hear the rustle of fabric as he moved. He was humming something, an old country song my mother used to play. The casual cruelty of it made my teeth clench. "Sarah Bennett," Danny called out, closer now. "I know you're scared. I know Garrett Hayes and Travis Coleman are in here with you. Garrett, buddy, you really messed this up. The plan was simple. But since you couldn't follow instructions, we're going to have to improvise." He appeared in the study doorway, silhouetted against the hallway light. Average height, soft around the middle, glasses reflecting ambient moonlight through the windows. He looked like someone's insurance agent uncle, not a man who'd orchestrated murder. "There you are," Danny said pleasantly. He had a gun, too, newer, cleaner, held with the confidence of someone who'd practiced. "Everyone stay calm. This doesn't have to get messy." Ghost exploded from beside me. I'd never seen him move that fast. 1 second he was pressed against my leg, the next he was airborne, 60 pounds of predator moving with the efficiency of something designed by millions of years of evolution to take down prey. He hit Danny's center mass, drove him backward into the hallway. The gun went flying. Danny screamed. Not the scream of pain, but of pure terror, the sound humans make when they remember their meat, when something higher on the food chain reminds them of their place. "Ghost, hold!" I shouted. Ghost's jaws were around Danny's throat, not crushing, not tearing, just holding with the delicate pressure of a creature who understood exactly how fragile human skin was. Danny lay frozen beneath him, eyes wide, breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I picked up Danny's gun. It was heavier than I expected, still warm from his waistband. "Garrett, get some rope from the barn. Travis, find something to tie his hands." But Danny was laughing, actually laughing even with a wolf's teeth at his jugular. "You think this is over? You think tying me up solves anything? It solves the immediate problem of you trying to kill us," I said. "Kill you?" Danny's laughter was edged with hysteria. "Sarah, honey, I'm not here to kill you, I'm here to save you." "Funny way of showing it. Your parents are dead because of that animal." Danny's eyes flicked to Ghost. "Did they ever tell you the truth? Did they ever explain what they really found 3 years ago?" My finger tightened on the trigger. "Shut up! They didn't find a wolf pup in a trap. They stole him from a federal breeding facility in New Mexico. Your parents were thieves, Sarah. They kidnapped the last viable male Mexican wolf from a government conservation program because they thought they knew better than everyone else." The words hit like physical blows. "You're lying." "Am I? Check your mother's research journals. Check the dates. 3 weeks before they found Ghost, there was a break-in at the Endangered Species Conservation Center outside Albuquerque. 1 wolf pup missing. Security footage showed a man and woman matching your parents' description." Danny's voice was calm now, reasonable. "The feds have been looking for that wolf for 3 years. You know what the reward is for information leading to his recovery. $200,000. The study was silent except for Ghost's low breathing and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. "That's why you're here," I whispered. "Not for insurance money, for the reward. And the breeding program. Ghost is worth $5 million to the right buyer. But I'm not a criminal, Sarah. I'm going to do this the legal way. Report Ghost's location to Fish and Wildlife, collect the reward, watch them take him to a proper facility where he can actually help save his species. You'll get to visit him sometimes, maybe once a year. That's better than what your parents gave him. A life hiding in the desert, unable to be what he was meant to be." Travis had returned with rope. Garrett stood in the doorway, gun hanging loose in his hand, face unreadable. "So what was Garrett for?" I asked. "If you were just going to report Ghost legally?" Danny's smile was cold. "Insurance. If Garrett had done his job, if he'd taken the money and things had gone wrong, if you'd gotten hurt in the process, well, accidents happen during home invasions. And unclaimed wolves from crime scenes get processed quickly. No messy custody battles, no media attention. Just a quiet transfer to federal custody and a reward check with my name on it." "You wanted me dead," I said slowly. "You wanted Ghost without complications. I wanted a clean solution. But this works too. You're alive, you're witnesses to your own parents' crime. Ghost gets recovered. Everybody wins. Except my parents can't defend themselves," I said, "because they're dead." Something flickered in Danny's expression. Not guilt. Satisfaction. "Your parents' accident," I continued, pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. "Highway 10, 2 years ago. Drunk driver crossed the median. That driver was never found. Funny thing about drunk drivers, Danny said. They're so easy to fake. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun already fired. Danny Walsh had killed my parents, murdered them for a wolf, for money, for reasons that probably made sense in whatever dark corner of his mind had twisted profit into justification for taking 2 lives. Ghost's jaws tightened incrementally around Danny's throat, not enough to break skin, but enough that Danny's breathing became labored, panicked. His eyes darted to me, to the gun in my hand, calculating odds that were no longer in his favor. "Sarah, don't." Garrett's voice came from behind me, low and urgent. "Don't let him make you into something you're not. He killed them." My hand was steady on the gun, steadier than it had any right to be. "He took my parents away from me, and he's standing here bragging about it. I know. God help me, I know exactly how that feels." Garrett moved beside me, gently placed his hand over mine on the weapon. "Katie died because I couldn't afford to save her. Every day I wake up wanting to hurt someone, wanting to make someone pay for a system that values money over human life. But killing Danny won't bring them back. It'll just make you like him. He deserves to die. Probably. But you deserve better than carrying that weight." Garrett's grip tightened. "Your parents raised you better than this." Through the window, I saw headlights in the distance. Multiple vehicles, moving fast up the desert road, red and blue lights cutting through the darkness. "Police," Travis said from his position by the window. 3 cars, maybe 4. Danny's laughter was wet, choked by Ghost's pressure on his windpipe. "Called them, before I came in. Told them, armed intruders, holding minor hostage." The implications hit me like cold water. When those police arrived, they'd see 2 men with criminal records in my house, one with a gun, me with another gun, and Danny with a wolf at his throat. Who would they believe? The insurance agent who'd called for help, or the desperate criminals and the girl with an illegal predator? "We need to run," Travis said. "Out the back, into the desert. They'll never find us at night." "I'm not running." I lowered the gun, handed it to Garrett. "Ghost, release." Ghost backed off immediately, though every line of his body remained taut with aggression. He'd tasted violence tonight, felt the fragile give of human flesh between his jaws, and some part of him, the part that was still wild, still wolf, had liked it. That scared me more than Danny's confession. "Sarah, they'll take Ghost," Garrett said. "The minute those cops see him—" "I know." I knelt beside Ghost, wrapped my arms around his neck. He smelled like desert sage and something metallic, blood, maybe Danny's or maybe from a split in his own lip. But running makes us guilty. And I'm not guilty of anything except trying to survive. The police cars skidded to stops in the driveway, doors slamming, boots on gravel, voices shouting commands that overlapped into chaos. I stood up, hands raised, stepped into the hallway where they could see me clearly. "Sarah Bennett?" I called out. "I live here? There's been a situation." The front door, already damaged from Danny's entry, gave way under a boot. 3 officers poured in, weapons drawn, flashlights strobing across walls and faces, and the wolf standing at my side. "Everyone on the ground! Now! Hands where we can see them!" I knelt slowly, Ghost matching my movement. Behind me I heard Garrett and Travis doing the same. Danny was still on the floor, already in the position the police wanted, already playing the victim. "Officers, thank God." Danny's voice was strained but clear. "These men broke into this girl's home. I came to check on her and they attacked me." "The animal. You need to secure that animal. It's dangerous." "That animal saved my life." My voice cut through his performance. "And Danny Walsh killed my parents 2 years ago. I have evidence. I have recordings. I have his confession." Sheriff Davidson pushed through the other officers. "I knew him. He'd been friends with my grandfather for 40 years, had taught me to fish when I was 8, had cried at my parents' funeral. He looked older now, more tired, but his eyes were still sharp. "Sarah?" He holstered his weapon, waved the other officers to lower theirs. "What in God's name is happening here?" "The truth," I said. "Finally." But before I could explain, before I could show him my phone with Garrett's recorded testimony, before any of it could make sense, the sound of another vehicle approaching made everyone freeze. This one was older, louder, moving with the grinding determination of machinery pushed beyond its limits. The engine died with a cough. A door opened. Footsteps, uneven and dragging, coming up the porch. "Sarah?" The voice was hoarse, desperate. "Sarah, baby, where are you?" Grandpa Bill stumbled through the broken doorway and collapsed at the threshold. His hospital gown was soaked with sweat and blood from his feet. He'd walked through the desert, at 75 with a heart that had already tried to kill him once. He'd walked to save me. "Grandpa?" I lunged forward, but an officer held me back. Ghost broke free, reached Bill first, pressed against his side as the old man's eyes rolled back and his body went limp. The EMTs were already moving, but I could see it in their faces. The desperate efficiency that meant time was running out. Bill had pushed himself beyond human limits, and now he was paying the price. 3 months felt like 3 years. The hospital room in Phoenix smelled like every hospital room, antiseptic, trying to mask the underlying scent of sickness and fear. Grandpa Bill lay in the bed by the window, thinner than I remembered, skin paper white against the starched sheets. But he was alive. The doctors said it was a miracle. I said it was stubbornness. "Stop fussing," Bill grumbled as I adjusted his pillows for the 3rd time. "I'm not made of glass. You walked 10 miles through the desert at night with a compromised heart. You're lucky you're not made of anything anymore." He caught my hand, squeezed with surprising strength. "I heard you scream. In my head I heard it clear as day. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe it was the medication, but I knew you needed me. What kind of grandfather stays in bed when his granddaughter needs him? The kind who wants to live long enough to walk me down the aisle someday," I said, voice cracking. "Then you'd better start dating, because I'm not going anywhere yet." The preliminary hearing had been 2 weeks ago. I'd sat in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and older secrets, watching Danny Walsh in an orange jumpsuit try to explain away murder. The FBI had gotten involved. Apparently, Danny's activities extended beyond Arizona. 4 other families over 5 years, all targeted for valuable property or assets, all suffering convenient accidents or home invasions that left Danny positioned to profit. My parents hadn't been random victims. They'd been marks. The federal prosecutor, a woman named Martinez with kind eyes and an iron voice, had laid it out in excruciating detail. Danny had discovered my parents' research, had figured out they possessed something worth millions. When they refused to sell him information about Ghost's location, when they made it clear they'd never help him profit from an endangered species, he'd arranged their accident. Clean. Professional. A drunk driver who'd disappeared into Mexico, paid $5,000 to cross a median at exactly the right moment. 2 lives for $5,000 and the promise of millions later. Garrett Hayes had testified. Stood up in that courtroom, hands shaking, and explained how Danny had manipulated him. Used Katie's death as leverage, fed him false information, set him up as the fall guy for a murder disguised as a home invasion. The prosecutor had offered Garrett immunity in exchange for his testimony. The judge had agreed. Travis Coleman had testified too. Turned out he wasn't just some random accomplice, he was Frank Miller's son, estranged for a decade after Frank had thrown him out for drug addiction. Travis had been at the shelter where Danny found Garrett, both of them drowning in the specific desperation that comes from losing everything. Danny had promised them salvation and delivered damnation. But the part that made national news, the part that had reporters camping outside the ranch for weeks, was Ghost. The federal wildlife hearing had been a circus. Conservationists arguing Ghost should be placed in a breeding program. Animal rights activists arguing he should be released to the wild. Legal experts debating whether my parents had committed a crime by taking him. Geneticists presenting evidence that Ghost was, in fact, the last viable male Mexican wolf with the genetic diversity necessary to prevent inbreeding in captivity populations. Ghost was worth more than money. He was worth the survival of his entire species. Dr. Rebecca Santos from University of Arizona had been my advocate. She'd spent 3 days on the stand explaining wolf behavior, bonding patterns, the trauma that forced separation would cause both Ghost and me. She'd presented research showing that Mexican wolves were naturally skittish around humans. Ghost's comfort with people made him valuable as an ambassador for his species, a bridge between conservation and public education. The judge had ruled in my favor. Barely. Desert Rose Ranch was now a federally protected wildlife sanctuary. I was Ghost's official keeper, receiving a government salary and oversight. Ghost would participate in a breeding program, but on his own territory, with females brought to him rather than being shipped off to some facility. I could attend university while maintaining custody, as long as I met strict reporting requirements and allowed quarterly inspections. It wasn't freedom, but it was close enough. "You're thinking too loud," Bill said, pulling me from my thoughts. "I can practically hear the wheels turning. Just remembering the hearing, the judge's face when they showed her the footage of Ghost defending me from Danny. She couldn't decide if he was a hero or a threat. Both, probably. World's not black and white, sweetheart. That wolf is dangerous and loyal, wild and domesticated, the last of his kind and the first of a new generation. He's everything at once, just like you." A knock on the door interrupted us. Frank Miller stood in the doorway, cowboy hat in hand, looking uncomfortable in the sterile hospital environment. "Hope I'm not intruding." "Frank," Bill's face lit up. "Get in here, you old fool. How's the shoulder?" "Heals slower at 71 than it did at 21, I'll tell you that." Frank settled into the visitor's chair, wincing slightly. Danny's bullet had gone clean through, missing bone but tearing muscle. He'd been lucky. "Came to give you an update on Travis." My heart clenched. "Is he okay?" 90 days sober as of yesterday. Got himself into a program in Tucson, real comprehensive one. Therapy, job training, the works. "Called me last week." Frank's voice went rough. "First time I've heard from my boy in 10 years. He said thank you for not giving up on him." "You came when he needed you," I said. "That's what matters. I threw him out 10 years ago when he asked for help with his addiction. Told him to be a man, pull himself up by his bootstraps. All that tough love garbage that just meant I was too proud to admit my son was hurting." Frank wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "It took him nearly dying to make me realize that being a man means showing up, not standing apart." Bill reached across, gripped Frank's hand. Two old veterans who'd seen too much, survived too much, carried too much. We do the best we can with what we know at the time. All we can do is be better when we know better. "Speaking of better," Frank said, recovering his composure. "Got something for you, Sarah?" He pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to me. From Garrett. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten on lined paper, and a photograph. The letter was short. "Sarah, Katie is alive. Danny lied about her death. She's been in an experimental treatment facility in California, off the grid, her aunt's care. I just found out yesterday. She asks about you, about the girl who knew her butterfly tattoo. I'm going to see her next week. Thank you for seeing me as human when I couldn't see it myself. Garrett." The photograph showed Katie, thin but smiling, standing beside a hospital bed with a butterfly painted on the wall behind her. She was alive. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The cruelty of Danny's lie, the unimaginable torture Garrett had endured believing his daughter was dead when she was alive and fighting. "He gets his daughter back," I whispered. "After everything, Garrett gets his daughter back." 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen where it had all begun. The window was repaired now, new glass that didn't carry the memory of being shattered, but I'd kept one shard, mounted it in a shadow box on the wall with a small plaque. July 23rd, the night we learned what family really means. Grandpa Bill was at the stove, moving slower than he used to, but moving nonetheless. His doctors said the walking shouldn't have killed him, but it should have done permanent damage. Instead, he'd recovered with the stubborn resilience of a man who refused to leave his granddaughter alone in the world. He was flipping pancakes, humming that old country song Mom used to love, the same one Danny had hummed that night, though neither of us mentioned that anymore. Ghost lay on the cool tile floor, 3 pups tumbling over his legs. They were 6 months old now, silver gray like their father, with those same unsettling amber eyes. The breeding program had brought 2 females to the ranch last winter. Ghost had been gentle with them, patient, everything the conservationists had hoped for. Mexican wolves were coming back from extinction, and it started here, in my kitchen, with a creature I'd found bleeding in a trap. The doorbell rang. Ghost's ears perked, but he didn't move. He'd learned to distinguish between threats and visitors. I opened the door to find Katie Hayes standing on my porch, holding a cake with slightly lopsided frosting. "Happy birthday," she said, grinning. "I know it's not until next week, but I wanted to give you this before classes start." Katie had enrolled at University of Arizona 3 months ago. We were roommates now, sharing an apartment in Tucson during the week, driving back to the ranch on weekends. Her hair had grown back, dark and curly, hiding the scars from the port where chemotherapy had dripped poison into her veins to kill the poison already there. The experimental treatment had worked. She'd been in remission for 8 months. "You didn't have to," I started, but she was already pushing past me, heading for the kitchen where Bill would make a fuss over her baking. Frank Miller's truck pulled up next, Travis in the passenger seat. They came every Sunday now, father and son rebuilding what they'd broken through years of pride and pain. Travis worked as a park ranger at Saguaro National Park, using his military training to protect the desert instead of fighting wars in it. He was 18 months sober, attending meetings twice a week, calling Frank every morning to say, "Still here, Dad, still fighting." The last vehicle was a rental sedan. Garrett Hayes stepped out, looking healthier than the broken man who'd aimed a gun at me a year ago. He'd found work in California, construction and handyman jobs, enough to rent an apartment near Katie's treatment facility. He visited the ranch once a month, always bringing groceries he claimed were extras, but that perfectly matched what we needed. His way of saying thank you, I supposed. His way of apologizing for a crime he'd been manipulated into attempting. We gathered around the table, Bill, Frank, Travis, Garrett, Katie, and me. Ghost and his pups formed a protective semicircle around us, wild things learning to trust, domesticated enough to love but never fully tamed, exactly as they should be. "I want to say something," Garrett said quietly. He stood, glass of water in hand. Nobody drank alcohol at our gatherings, respect for Travis's sobriety. "A year ago I thought I'd lost everything. My wife, my daughter, my land, my dignity. I thought the only thing left was desperation and maybe revenge against a world that had taken too much." His voice caught. Katie reached up, took his hand. "But Sarah taught me that losing everything isn't the end. It's just the moment before you discover what you're really made of. Danny Walsh tried to destroy all of us. Instead, he accidentally created a family out of broken pieces. He raised his glass. To second chances. To the girl who saw humanity in a man who'd forgotten he was human. To Ghost and his pups. And to the stubborn old man who walked through hell because love demanded it. We raised our glasses. Water, coffee, orange juice. Simple things for people who'd learned that simple was enough. To family, Bill said. The kind you're born with and the kind you choose. To family, we echoed. Outside, the desert stretched endless and golden under the setting sun. Somewhere in that vastness, other wolves would run someday. Ghost's children and their children, reclaiming territory that had been empty too long. And in my kitchen, surrounded by people who'd tried to hurt each other and learned to love instead, I finally understood what my mother had meant all those years ago. Always find the humanity in your enemy. Because sometimes your enemy is just someone who hasn't learned yet that you're on the same side. Sometimes the worst night of your life becomes the doorway to discovering what you're truly made of. Sarah's story reminds us that family isn't always found in bloodlines. It's forged in the fires of shared survival, in the moment someone chooses to stand beside you when running away would be easier. We spend so much of our lives building walls to protect what we love, only to discover that real strength comes from letting broken people in, from seeing the humanity in someone who's forgotten they possess it. Garrett walked into that house as a desperate criminal and died a hero. Bill walked 10 miles through the desert because love demanded it. Ghost, a creature the world called dangerous, proved that loyalty transcends species, and Sarah learned that sometimes saving others is how we save ourselves. The deepest wounds we carry aren't always visible, but healing begins when we stop surviving alone and start living together. In the end, we're all just broken pieces trying to become whole again, and the glue that binds us is the courage to forgive, to trust, and to believe that second chances aren't just possible, they're sacred. What's a moment when someone saw your humanity when you couldn't see it yourself? Or have you ever discovered that the person you feared was actually fighting the same battles you were? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.